So welcome to the new basic questions. This is covering sections 2.6 to 2.9. Any new questions are in bold, and we're in section 2, and we're covering the last part of it. RST systems, S meter, Q signals and codes, emergency procedures, and records. So, what do RST signal reports describe? So the answer is signal reception. What does RST stand for? So the answer is B, readability, signal strength, and tone. Tone is used for Morse code. What is the meaning of your signal report 5.7? So that means that 5.7, the answer is A, your signal is perfectly readable and moderately strong. What is the meaning of a signal report of 3.3? So 3.3 means that your signal report is readable with considerable difficulty and weak in strength. What's the meaning of year 5.9 plus 20? So that means you have a really strong signal and you're above S9. So the answer is A, you're perfectly readable with a signal strength of 20 decibels greater than S9. So you have a really strong signal. A distance station asks for a signal report on a local repeater you monitor. What do you report? So the answer here is quality of the station signal and audio as heard through the repeater. Here's a new question. Your receiver S meter is calibrated to a standard of 6 dB per S unit per a recommendation by the International Amateur Radio Union, IARU. The S meter shows S9 when receiving a station transmitting with 100 watts. Neglecting propagation changes, what transmitter power would cause your receiver S meter to read S8? So you're going down in units. So one S unit is 6 dB. So 6 dB is 4 times or 1/4. So the answer would be 1/4 of 100 watts, which would be 25 watts. Assume your S meter is calibrated to the international standard of 6 dB per S unit. The S meter shows S8 when listening to a nearby transmitter. Approximately how much must the transmitter power be raised to go up to S9? So again, you're going from S8 to S9, so that's 6 dB. So the answer would be times 4. So you look down here and the answer is D, 4 times. Just remember 3 dB is 2 times, 6 dB is 4 times. Here, what does the RST 579 mean in the Morse code contest? So that means your signal is perfectly readable, moderately strong, and with a perfect tone. What does the signal of 459 mean in a Morse code contact? So that means your signal is quite readable, fair strength, and with perfect tone. Again, all of these are subjective. In voice context, what is the meaning of your signal report is 1-1. So that's at the bottom end of the scale. Your signal is unreadable and barely perceivable. You're hearing something, but you're not really sure what they're you can't read it, what they're actually saying. So now we get into a section on Q codes. And this was mainly used for Morse code, but although some people do use it for voice. So here, there's quite a few Q codes, but here are the ones that are on the exam. So what does the Q code QRS mean? So QRS means A, send more slowly. What does the QR code QTH mean? So QTH means my location is. What does what's the Q code used to see if a frequency is in use before transmitting on CW? So that would be CQRL. You can have it either as a question mark or as a statement. So it's QRL question mark. What does the code QSY mean? So QSY means change to another frequency. What does the signal QSB mean? That means your signal is fading. What is the correct Q code to ask who is calling you? So the answer here is QRZ, who is calling. Here is a typo. This should be a Z. What does QRM mean? So QRM is related to you being interfered with. So I'm being interfered with QRM. What does this code QRN means? That means C, I'm troubled by static. What's the Q code indicating what is for the other station to send slower? So that Q code would be QRS. What is the Q code that means who is calling me in amateur radio? That would be A QRZ, who is calling me. What is the Q code means I will be calling you again in amateur radio? So that would be C QRX. I will call you again. So now we get into emergency procedures. When may you use your amateur radio station to transmit an SOS or a Mayday? And the answer is C, in a life-threatening distress situation. You need to summon help. This is a new question now. You need to summon help while stranded at a remote location, but without immediate risk to life. So what priority is your message? So in this case, you would be an urgent message. It's important, but there's no immediate risk to life. What voice signal transmitted 3 times signifies distress? So for voice, you would use Mayday. So C, Mayday, Mayday, Mayday. What is the correct distress signal in Morse code? So in Morse code, you would use SOS. What is the correct way to interrupt, repeat a conversation to seek assistance in a distress station? So here you would break in between transmissions to state your call sign and situation. Remember, if you got 2 people talking, they may not actually hear you when you're trying to break in. So if there's a gap in the transmission, that's the time you should break in. What is the advantage of preparing to operate your station without commercial AC power? So, you know, so you can provide communications when there's a power outage. In an emergency, what additional equipment is crucial to maintaining communication with a handheld radio? So for a handheld radio, you want to have an adequate supply of charged batteries. Um, what type of antenna would be a good choice as part of a portable HF station that could be set up in case of an emergency? So you want the simplest antenna that you can have, and that would be a dipole or a vertical. That would be relatively easy to set up and to use. If you're communicating with another station and you hear a station in distress break in, what should you do? So the answer here is acknowledge the station in distress and determine its location and what assistance may be needed. In order of priority, a distress message comes before B, an emergency message. If you hear a distress traffic and are unable to render direct assistance, you should D, contact authorities and maintain watch in case your assistance is needed. Now we get into records. So what is a QSL card? So it's a written proof of communication between two amateur radio operators. What is an azimuth map? A map projection centered on a given location. Here's a new question. While making a contact in a VHF contest, the other operator asks for your grid square. What information is requested? So your grid square tells them your location. So it's either a 4-digit or a 6-digit character code. A directional antenna pointed in the long path direction to another station is generally oriented how many degrees from its short path heading. So here you have a directional antenna. So usually one end is the transmitting side has a higher gain in one direction. So the answer here is D, 180 degrees between short path and long path. What method is used by amateur radio operators to provide proof of communication with another station? And that again relates to the QSL card or entries in a web-based logging system. Local stations in contact with New Zealand, yet you cannot hear the New Zealand amateur radio operators with the antenna pointed in that direction. What other antenna direction could you try to hear them? So again, this is related to long paths, short paths. So sometimes it's better to hear them 180 degrees away, so you rotate your antenna 180 degrees. Which statement about recording all contacts and unanswered CQ calls in a paper or computer-based logbook is not correct? So these are one of the not questions. So B, a logbook is important for recording contacts for operating awards. That's true. A well-kept logbook preserves your fondest amateur radio memories for years. That's true. A logbook is important for handling neighbor interference complaints. Yes, that's true. So the incorrect answer is A. A logbook is a regulatory requirement. It was a requirement, many years back, but now it's no longer a regulatory requirement. Here's two more questions. What is the most useful function of an azimuth world map centered on your location? Since you're centered on your location, you can use it to show the bearing of any location. and that would be the direction you would point your antenna if you wanted to contact someone in that location. Activity schedules, time entries in logbooks, and contact confirmations usually refer to UTC, Coordinated Universal Time, which is the location of the meridian from which this time is measured. So that time comes from Greenwich in the UK. Here's a new question. Your time zone is UTC minus 6 hours. You want to join a net scheduled for 1900 UTC. What is the local scheduled time? So since 1900 is your UTC time and your UTC minus 6 hours, you subtract 6 hours from 1900, and that would give you 1 o'clock or 1300 hours. So it's 1 o'clock p.m. So that would be the correct answer would be B. Here's another new question. What is the usefulness of stations CHU, WWV, and WWVH amateur radio? So these are all beacons that provide accurate and precise frequency and time signals. So that concludes section 2. So next week, we'll get into more of the operational technical sides of radios. And this is where most of the changes to the exam have happened in that you don't have to know the layout. The layout is actually given you as a study aid that you can take in with to you into the exam. And so there'll be more questions about not where is a specific component, but what does it actually do? So we'll cover all that next week, and we'll try to do maybe two big sections again, 0 to 5 and 6 to 10 next week. Now let me stop the recording.